So now I will move on to a notice of non-renewal for a month-to-month tenancy, which is where the tenant makes monthly payments to the landlord in order to stay in the rental unit. This is covered under section 27-40-770B of the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. And the statute requires for this notice that it be in writing, that it specify a termination date, and give the tenant at least 30 days before that termination date to vacate the rental unit.
One question that seems specific to this, is there, I guess, a special consideration, or is it the same process if it is a month-to-month lease that comes with a year-long lease?
I don't know if I understand. So it's like they had a year-long lease and it terminated, and now they're month-to-month. Is that what it is?
That clarification isn't in the question. With my personal experience with leases, I would think that maybe that is the situation. Maybe it was a year-long lease that after a year went month to month. And so at that stage, would it then fall under the month-to-month information because of the switch?
Yeah, so if someone has a year-long lease and it expires, but they continue to make monthly payments after the fact and they're in private housing, it moves on to being a month-to-month tenancy. The terms of their lease agreements would still apply, but they would be considered a month-to-month tenant if they do not have a current lease agreement.
Okay. Okay, we did get another question about month-to-month. So the landlord would only be able to file for eviction if the tenant is still there after the 30 days when the lease would be terminated.
So, yeah, so the landlord would have to give the 30-day written notice before they can file an eviction action. And actually, this kind of goes into one of the applications that I have to kind of just elaborate that they can't give a 30-day notice and then file an action before the 30 days are up. The 30 days have to go by before they can file an eviction action against the tenant, the month-to-month tenant. Does that answer?
Great, thank you. Yes, that seems to have answered the question.
All right. Any other questions about month-to-month notice of non-renewal for month-to-month tenancy?
Does the retaliation prohibition still apply in this scenario?
So I honestly do not know. I'm not certain about that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Wait, but I don't know like what specifically. I mean, I'm not sure what they're in what scenario. Like when, I guess I'm confused.
So like do the protections, I guess of like against landlord retaliation still apply with the month-to-month lease?
I don't really, I don't know what outcome would happen if what the outcome would be if someone tried to accuse a landlord of retaliating against them for giving them a notice of non-renewal for a month-to-month tenancy, just because the landlord doesn't have to give a reason when it comes to this type of non-renewal. It doesn't have to be they terminated the lease. You can be current and everything and still get this type of notice if you're month-to-month. That the statute, all it requires is that they give you this. I don't know how successful you would be on that. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. And if you ask that question and you feel like you need a little bit more clarification on that, feel free to send in another question and we can circle back at the end of the presentation.
Yes.
Otherwise, I do think we are ready to continue on.
Okay. So let's get into our applications. On December 15th, 2022, a landlord posts on the front door of tenant's rental unit a notice that states the lease will terminate on December 31st. Tenant is living in private housing on a month-to-month tenancy. Is this proper? Remember, you're on a month-to-month tenancy. You're entitled to a 30-day written notice. That's why this is not proper, because it does not because the statute requires that the landlord give the tenant at least 30 days. In this case, the landlord did not give the tenant 30 days, which is why it's not considered proper notice. Application 2 states that on December 15th, a landlord posts on the front door of a tenant's rental unit a notice that states the lease will terminate on February 15, 2023. Note the tenant is living in private housing on a month-to-month tenancy. Is this proper? Yes, so this is actually like our the previous application with a week-to-week tenancy. Statute requires that the landlord give at least 30 days, but if the landlord decides to give 60 days or more, the landlord's allowed to do that. It does not make the notice improper, which is why under this application, this would be considered proper. But applying the same facts as application 2, what if the landlord finds out the tenant is still in the unit on January 2nd and files an eviction action on January 3rd? Is this proper? No, because the action was filed before the before the deadline that was given to the tenant. Also, even if the landlord gave the tenant the 30 days required by the statute, the landlord filed the action before the 30 days even passed. So this would not be considered proper. And I think this is what I addressed earlier as well when someone asked a question about that. But I'm going to move on